How does self-awareness empower change? I'm Helen Renedick.
And I'm Nahid Khan. And we are here today to take you through an interesting journey of understanding the different styles that we stopped at the last week. So last week we were talking about the 4 quadrants and the different styles as per the theory of William Marston, or the model of William Marston, which talks about the DISC. So today is the most interesting part, because today we are going to talk about the most interesting
D style.
Yes,
and we're
absolutely.
both wearing, sometimes that can be the color of red. It's shown us the color of red.
Yeah.
And we are going to talk a little bit about, how you are perceived, and are you aware of that?
Exactly. Because these styles are supposed to be people who are very aggressive, people who are go-getters, people who are demanding, people who are, you can say, the born leaders kind of a thing, because of their inner push or inner drive to be the one who's leading the change. Don't you think?
Yeah, and so if I meet, now I know how the D style is. So if I meet a D style, sometimes they can seem a little bit arrogant, maybe a little bit rude. And they're very short, they are direct, they can do everything. They can talk in the phone, and they can, talk to others.
I completely agree. When we look at this is exactly what we did the last time. We stopped at understanding the 4 styles. And when we look at the D style, we see that these are people who are more interested in facts and hard values. They're result oriented. They want things to happen. They have to be on their feet. They need to get moving. They need to get it done. So they're very dynamic in that. They're very challenging in that. And they challenge everybody else who's around them to get moving, don't you think?
Yes. And I'm not that style. I have a little bit of that inside, so I can use the direct. However, Nahid, you are a D. So I don't see you at all being very direct, and you're not at all rude or anything. And it's not really rude. The people are not rude. They want to get things done, like you said. But how do you use this?
So, what's the interesting part is it's what we are talking about. It's about being aware about who we are. Once we know that it's about the natural preferences. What does the D style naturally bring out in me? It brings out me as somebody who loves challenges. It brings out me as somebody who loves to get things done. It brings out in me a person who would not wait for the change to happen, but rather lead the change and make it happen. So these are natural preferences. That does not mean that these take precedence over everything else. It's about when you know that these are your strengths, you use these strengths to even be kind, to even be compassionate, to even be, it's like I was discussing with you a little while back, that there are times when I actually have to stop myself and say, let's, start with nicety, start with courtesies. Don't just go direct and is this done? That's not how it's supposed to be said. So you become more aware about how you do things and what should be done, what we call the conscious and the unconscious behavior. Right? We discussed about that in our post today, that there is something called the unconscious behavior and something called the conscious behavior. Unconscious is our natural stimulus, our reactions, and conscious, of course, is the one that we think should be our best behavior. So once we know our unconscious or our natural behavior, it's easier for us to actually make those changes, develop those changes, and bring out a much more conscious style, or a much more conscious or a better version of ourselves.
And also how we communicate. So both you and I, we work with people. So when we know how we can reach them from their point, not coming from my own side, because I'm maybe different than that person. But if I know how do they most receive if I speak to them, then it becomes so much easier.
Absolutely.
Both between a senior and a junior reaching, if he has to or she has to speak to his senior or his boss or whatever it is. But if he knows this is how I can actually speak to this person for him to hear me. And I think that's so great because it saves so many miscommunication. You know, we can actually start to communicate. And even between a couple, you know, I think any relationship, if you listen to how they are going to receive it, it saves so many misunderstandings and problems.
So completely agree with you. So completely agree with you on this, that if you know the person that you're speaking to, what is their natural preference, you have so much of power within you to actually control your words, control your feelings, control what the other person will feel when you speak to them. It's like with a D, if you come and give them a story, you've lost them. You come and give them to the point facts, they're interested, they are with you. But the same with with an S, if you just come and tell them that, these are the facts, you've lost them. They need to have the feeling. So it's, I believe, where we are on the quadrant, a D is on the thinking quadrant, on the intuition quadrant. So they would like things which makes them think. They would like things which puts them into action. Rather, the sensing part will always be there because we are human, we are social beings. So it doesn't mean that if we have something like this wherein we are assertive, we are demanding, we are tough, that does not mean that we cannot have compassion, we cannot have empathy, we cannot have emotional intelligence. It's all there, it's a mix. But then these are things what makes you, what are your strengths and what you can actually make your strength.
But that's what I think is so fantastic with this tool, because it actually gives you more insight to how you are seen by others, and how you could communicate or how you could come across to others. So you could be aware. I mean, that's where we are coming from, being self-aware. Because if you are aware, okay, that's how I'm coming across to other people that are not the same as I am. And even it's so important, because if there's two D styles, they might have the same traits or whatever you would call it, but then it comes down also to their values, and they can be totally different there. So they could not be seen outside as they are the same two styles.
Yes, absolutely. It's what you have spoken about in your post recently about the cultural heritage, right? And the behavioral filters. Now that is something which does define who we do become. Behavior, of course, is there. It is affected or impacted by the environment around us. But we can't cut out the traditions, the values. The values actually make the most of who we become.
So this tool doesn't measure that. It does not measure the cultural heritage or behavior filters.
Yes,
it does,
absolutely.
The conscious and the unconscious that you are going to or are talking about in your post.
Yeah. So once you actually have more awareness about your conscious and your unconscious behavior, don't you think it becomes much easier for you to actually go back and question, where are you coming from? Why did you have these changes in your values or in your beliefs? It becomes much more easier for us to become more self-aware and then have a better idea of what needs to change in me, what I need to develop, what I need to modify, what I need to control. And I think,
and I do believe that if you are working together with other people, okay, how can we use this D style right now? What are their strengths? What are they going to be able to contribute to? Because that's what we want to do as employers or as employees, be the best for the company or for ourselves, or that's. So here we have the D style that can take action, and we require that now when changes are happening.
Yes, absolutely.
So what do you think about that?
I completely agree with you, and these are very good when it comes to crisis. When in times when you want things to be done and things to be done quickly, then these are the ones you can actually bank on. That they come and you give them something, it's going to be done. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be done at the cost of others. but it's going to be done including everything that needs to be taken care of. So these, you can say that probably the people that you can depend, who's gonna get the job done. So in today's time, when we are all looking at this transition, the traits of a D actually will give you that confidence of, looking beyond, thinking beyond, and taking things forward. So in terms of being an employee, we are an asset for an organization at this time. In terms of for being an employer, these are your go-to people. These are your people that you need to have at the forefront, because they will be the ones to take the team along and not just move alone ahead. So it's so interesting if you know what your team members are made up of, what you are made up of, because then it's easier for you to actually, in crisis time, it's all about leading. So, you get the leader out.
Although there can be leaders from all the different quadrants.
Absolutely.
It's just to see that diamond that we showed before. How do people work together the best way? Who do we have, to take the initiative? Who can take over? And that is so interesting. So I believe we're going to come to that, when we go through all the styles, maybe then we can see all the synergies that, and the collaboration that each and everyone can do together.
Absolutely, because we none of us are actually just one style. We are a mixture of so many different types. So it's about what takes precedence, what is dominating, or I should say controlling your preferences. And when we look at, as you said, leaders can be from any style, and absolutely true, because it doesn't mean that I cannot have the qualities of D. You do. You show such beautiful qualities of D, Helen. So it's what I know about myself and what I need to develop. This is the awareness that this tool brings to us. And I think that, in the current times that we are in today, I think we both will agree to this, that being in our comfort zone right now, all of us, our natural preferences are going to be seen much more than we have ever seen them before.
Absolutely. Now we are in our own space, and how do we act now, and also being aware of when that natural style comes in, because when we are faced with hard times and so on, we all also act and react differently. Naturally we react, and that's to be aware of that, but also that these styles have a different way of showing and coming through now.
Absolutely. So it's going to be quite interesting once you know the different ways the different styles actually show their preferences and show their behavioral characteristics and traits. You can identify the strengths, and you can see which can actually add synergy to the team right now.
Yeah, so I can't wait to go further with our lifestyle next week.
Absolutely, that's your style. So I'm looking forward to seeing that next week.
So we will see you next week.
Absolutely. Let's empower change.
Yeah, absolutely.